Trial attorney Sarah Azari. Sarah, great to see you. Sarah is one of Combs' longtime, and one of Combs, you weren't there a long time, one of Combs' longtime attorneys, Mark Geragos, whose daughter Tenny is on Diddy's current legal team. Mark, Sarah, thank you guys for joining us. So Sarah, one of the things that you see going back and forth here between these texts is really the prosecution. What the prosecution is going to have to do is convince the jury that she wasn't a willing participant, that she was kind of agreeing out of fear, right, for herself. How do you do that in that process? Can that actually be done?
You know, look, I'll be honest, I'm the prosecutor tonight, but this today was not good for the prosecution, but also wasn't shocking. I think they were expecting this. There was a lot of consent, there was a lot of autonomy in her testimony, and that all the testimony that we heard on direct, where there was violence intertwined with the freak-offs, I think the defense did a really good job at parsing that out and divorcing it. But she is the star witness. She's not the only witness. This trial just began, and I think that there's a lot that she's testified to that will go to the racketeering charge, even though the sex trafficking is probably, there's a lot of doubt there because of today's testimony.
Right. And Mark, I assume you would agree, a good day, I assume, for the defense. And again, does this give them momentum as they move forward? And is this exchange exactly what they were looking for?
Well, I saw some comments by her lawyer, Mr. Wigdor, outside, and he was saying things like the text of the text, it is what it is, and things along those nature. The fallback response when your client is being challenged, I suppose. The fact remains that I've never understood, maybe Sarah, playing the prosecutor today, can tell me this. Why, if you're the government and you're supposed to be seeking the truth, and, I won't attack or direct this at these particular prosecutors. I don't want to get sideways with anybody, but I've always wondered why in criminal trials, why prosecutors only give you half the truth. What are they afraid of? Why do they mislead jurors? Why do they not tell the jurors what it is? I mean, obviously, in any trial, you have to exchange discovery. So the prosecutors know these things are coming. Why do they hide it? Why do prosecutors not give the jury
Mark,
the whole picture? Why do they rely on the defense?
I think you know the answer, because we want the conviction. We want the truth, but we don't have an obligation to present all the text messages, so we cherry pick what works for our case. And I think with Cassie today...
But that's actually, Sarah, in your day job as a criminal defense lawyer, how many times have I heard you argue that you have a different job as a criminal defense lawyer than a prosecutor does? Prosecutor's supposed to seek the truth. Defense lawyer is the one who's supposed to zealously advocate.
But in reality, it doesn't work that way. And so I think what we're seeing here is, as the prosecution, I think they've gotten a lot out of Cassie for the racketeering. They got all these predicate acts. They've got the arson on Kid Cudi's car. They've got her alleged rape. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, if there's going to be a text message that's going to negate that, but she alleges she was raped by Diddy. They've got the domestic violence, which you don't have to believe Cassie. Look, we showed you video of that incident multiple times, right? And so I'm afraid of that.
The problem you've got, Sarah, you're still, like I say, I would just wait until I see
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I also think
that's what the judge tells the jurors, and just wait, because yesterday I heard a lot of stuff on people. Part of the problem with the legal analysts, and myself included, is we look at these things like an ESPN, who's ahead, first quarter, second quarter, and that's, the jurors are told, you can't decide until you've heard everything, and I'd caution people, wait and hear everything.
So, Mark, let's talk about that. You say wait. What are we waiting for? And what I mean by that is the core of the charges here are built on RICO and racketeering. So if you're an audience member looking here, what else does the prosecution need to bring forward? Who are the witnesses? What kind of testimony do we need to see to make those really substantive charges, stick? What are we expecting?
Well, look, you can have, part of what the argument is if you've got domestic violence, does that mean that you were supporting the enterprise? Does that mean you were supporting the racketeering? Does it mean, the part of the conundrum that is here for the prosecution is, and I'm sure you're going to see this later on, is this case a revisionist history? Meaning, are we looking back 10, 20 years, and are we trying to rewrite history? Because in a lot of ways, Sean Combs, as everybody knows, Sean Combs was the biggest star on the planet in the 90s and the early 2000s. This supposed conspiracy starts in 2004. He was wildly successful before 2004. So it's almost turning the world on its head in terms of what the prosecutorial theory is here. The judge is going to give instructions. He's going to tell the jurors, you just concentrate on what's shown in the courtroom, and here is the law, and you have to apply the facts as you see them.
But Mark, here's the problem. I, as the AUSA, have come in and have completely made Diddy into the most hated man ever. This jury is disgusted with him, and that's where I think the concern should be on the defense's part, that it makes it easier for the jury to not give him the benefit of the doubt, even though I think the defense is doing a good job so far casting doubt. I think he has become so...
I don't disagree with you. Think about how many cases, Sarah, you and I have either tried or defended where we have what I affectionately call the prosecutorial character assassination block of evidence. I can't tell you how often that we just deal with, and the judge is supposed to keep out, and most judges do. They do the balancing act. They say, is this just so prejudicial and not so probative that I'm going to
Mark,
exclude it?
You have to admit, there's nothing prejudicial about that video. They don't have to go back 20 years and when they look at a video right in front of them of Sean Combs, assaulting her I mean, how does a jury get past that? I mean, clearly this isn't a good guy.
Well,
clearly this is a problem. So how does won't they want to convict him of something?
Or how do they get past the urination in her mouth? And now we know she signed up for it. But I mean, they're so disgusted and disturbed by this, according to reports like by Laura and other reporters, that is what I think the defense should be concerned with, is that no matter how much doubt they cast, this jury is like, this guy's a monster, and.
Mark, do you suspect that you'll see some of Diddy's old colleagues have to take the stand on, for the racketeering and the RICO aspects of this?
Well, one of the things that we've seen so far is that all of the kind of smart money turned out to be not so smart about this case. I can't tell you how many times in the last year people have come up to me and talked about A-list celebrities, talked about tapes that were out there of, I won't even mention the names because I don't want to tarnish the various people, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of noise, if you will. And now you're seeing that, no, that isn't what this case is about. This case is about two long-term girlfriends. And to your point about the things that make people uncomfortable, I guess I'm so old that I remember when talking about people's sex lives in their privacy of their own, in this case, hotel room, was nothing you wanted. You didn't want the government in your bedroom. Mm-hmm. I remember, Sununu, when you were, a hardcore Republican, that was the Republican mantra, keep the government out of my bedroom. So there is a tendency, I think, to be disgusted, but at the same time, who wants their sex life put under a microscope?
Not me. I'll tell you that. And I think I speak for everyone. Let's keep government out of all of it, because there's nothing good that definitely comes of it, without a doubt. Yeah. Look, there's a long way to go here. I think it's going to be pretty riveting. Cannot thank you both, Sarah, Mark, two of the brightest minds that have been on the front lines of these types of criminal cases, and in a federal court, nonetheless. Can't thank you guys enough for having expert testimony here. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.